Hello, good evening. A far-right group supporter has been jailed after causing thousands of pounds worth of damage to landmarks across Newport. Austin Ross stuck racist posters on buildings, set fire to them and graffitied a school with swastikas. The judge told the 23-year-old he had a sheer hatred based upon his perverted view of race and religion. In a moment, we'll be speaking to the organisation Prevent and asking how concerned we should be in Wales about far-right radicalisation. First, though, our national correspondent Rob Osborne has tonight's top story.
This is Austin Ross. Today, he's been convicted as a racist neo-Nazi sympathiser whose aim was to spread division in his home city of Newport. And this is what he did. Public buildings in the city sprayed with swastikas. Others had posters attacking migrants or praising Hitler. He tried to set fire to a school and a Masonic lodge. Tens of thousands of pounds worth of damage was caused. Ross was a former pupil at one of the schools he targeted. The judge sentenced Austin Ross to 6 years in prison, telling him that his actions were not born out of a mental disorder, but out of sheer hatred. He showed no emotion as he was sentenced to prison. But the question, how does a 23-year-old man with no previous convictions end up doing this? What's attracted him to the far right?
Typically, when we think of the far right, we associate perhaps an older generation born from the 1970s, the National Front, the BNP in the 90s and the early 2000s. But I think for young people, the appeal has stratified in terms of economic disparity, perhaps alienation from their communities, but also the rise of social media and the ability to connect with people who espouse similar views.
The far right and Wales have a recent history. Darren Osborne from Cardiff drove a van into people outside a mosque in London. The judge said he had an ideology of hate towards Muslims. Earlier this month, Jonathan Jennings from Carmarthenshire was jailed after he called for Muslims to be hunted down. And in 2015, Zach Davis, a white supremacist, attempted to murder an Asian dentist in a supermarket in Mould. Davis was a member of National Action. That group is now banned. But there are splinter versions of it, including System Resistance Network, a group whose initials Austin Ross sprayed in Newport.
I think there's always a risk, and I think there's always a danger with the extreme far right. These kind of attitudes are pervasive in society. So you have Islamophobia, you have views against Jewish people and against homosexuals, and that can really cause tension within communities and it cause a real level of damage. It might just be one person shouting slurs in the street, but that can have a real impact on communities. It can make people feel really, really vulnerable, and so it can't be accepted.
As for Austin Ross, he's the first person with connections to System Resistance Network to be jailed in the UK. The judge hoping his long sentence will be a message to others. Rob Osborne, ITV News.
Earlier, I spoke to Nick Daines from the organisation Prevent. He specialises in working with those who engage with far-right extremism. I started by asking him how someone like Austin Ross becomes radicalised.
There's often a lot of different contributory factors, really, Andrea, to how something like this can take place, different sets of circumstances. So in the work that we do around Prevent, we try to look at a person in a holistic type of way, so understanding their personal circumstances, what might have been a catalyst for grievance, things that have contributed to a sense of hatred and resentment. And
what sort of examples could that be? Are you looking for do you tend to work with a certain type of person or a certain age of person or a certain background of person?
That's a good question. Everybody that I personally have worked with, and I'm sure is true for the rest of the team, is individual. So there's always a set of individual circumstances around a person. Grievances can range from social issues, there can be personal experiences that have contributed to someone's worldview. There's social, economic circumstances, various different aspects can create resentment.
And lots of people watching this programme won't have heard of the Systems Resistance Network. They'll be quite taken aback that this type of radicalisation is happening in Wales. How concerned should people be who are watching tonight?
I think obviously recently there's been a lot of momentum around right-wing profile. Certainly there's more of a popularist swing towards the right wing. In terms of extremist ideology, there's been perhaps slightly less, certainly in South Wales, that we've seen, but that doesn't mean that there's not more engagement with right-wing issues that are becoming more popularised, for example, around Tommy Robinson, around Steve Bannon, bringing that kind of profile into the public arena.
Of course, one of the huge problems is the different methods of propaganda now, online, social media. It must be almost impossible to tackle that.
Certainly, you're right. There's a lot of image-based material, video content, and a lot of what's published is often taken as being fact immediately without perhaps sourcing the right evidence around who's publishing that material. So often when I speak with people, they take what they see at face value.
What is it that you are doing in communities at the moment?
For many years there's been a lot of cross-community engagement with Prevent, and certainly in the work that I do I try to work collaboratively with other community organisations, and certainly when a person that I work with is at the right point in their journey, introduce different aspects to awareness and education by perhaps involving other community groups and providing broader education and awareness around social issues, faith issues and those kind of things.